Okay, on the forums, I saw that someone was having problems landing the Archaeologia. I'll probably link that in the when I put together the description for this video in YouTube. But in the process, I had to take a look at it myself because it's using a peg solution to help align it on the base. It's a capital vessel base combination over here. The over on the far side here, we can see the pad where I've actually stripped off the furnaces that were on there. I'll explain that a little bit later here. But it was kind of things where I was curious about whether whether there was an issue with that with the Archaeologia. Turned out docking on the peg solution there, have the same issue I have docking my capital vessel and my base and stuff. But I just wanted to give a little history. My interest with some of this stuff is actually starts with back here with these are not designed to line up perfectly. That was something I hadn't even considered a possibility at the time I built this. This is the counterstroke and phase stroke base removed from my workshop because they are not CPU compliant, and at this time I really don't have any ambition to bring it into compliance with the game as it is. But at the time I put it together, the idea was I put a base together, a base with a bunch of weapons on it, and then I put a capital vessel with that to give a few more turrets as well. So it's got the capital vessel has a full assortment of the 12 atmospheric capable turrets as well as 8 sentry guns on it. But it was designed, the way I designed it is I wanted them to thematically look like one as you're approaching. Closer examination, you may realize that these things are not perfectly aligned, especially as you get closer, because this is a capital vessel just basically free sitting in a zone where I have given basically 2 extra blocks in width and depth, so that it was fairly easy. Looks like I actually landed that pretty darn close to the center there, but that's surprising. There's been many times I've parked it a bit off. In fact, what it is these strips here are actually designed so, let's see, that's not the cockpit. This is the cockpit over here. That as I'm doing my landing, I can use that as a reference point to guide in my landing of the vessel. So it was just a visual lining. There was nothing to actually guide that vessel into a specific centered location lined up with the base. So that was my first messing around with that. Then my journey in this was before CPU was officially released, there was a leaked CPU system, as it might have, it had the CPU name, but it was not the CPU system that we are familiar with now. And there were a few of us that, having seen that CPU was coming, we started playing with what was then. Things have changed significantly since then with CPU. That was just a leaked, I don't know if it was a prototype or what it was exactly, but I think in some respects those of us that played with it, some of the things we tried and experimented with then still have relevance to the CPU as it is. It's just the what's possible, where the numbers are, this stuff. A lot of it is completely different than what we were playing with. However, one thing someone had played with was using capital vessels as ways to extend the CPU limitations of their base. So they built capital vessels, whether it be for storage, whether it be for manufacturing. They had built this stuff. Well, they built this base that these capital vessels would dock in. So these capital vessels are very simplistic boxes that would go in, and you'd slide down into cavities in the base, and then they would, they would be flush with the top of the base. They would look like part of the base stuff. The problem I had with that, I liked the concept. The issue was, although it was possible for me to land the capital vessel, dock it in there, it was extremely difficult and not necessarily always repeatable. So I'd pull it off once, and then I'd try for the life of me, and I couldn't get the next module to dock in the next slot. So then I started, is there a way to guide the capital vessel in stuff? I actually hit upon something for myself, adapting their box concept, using a space related one. So what you're looking at here, the perch, the Frontier perch, is an adaptation of my space module docking system, and the idea being, there's a reason I am not going to be converting any of mine over here to the peg system that they're using here on this one. This is not my creation. This is, let's see if I go here. Is that? I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Is that an I or L? I'd have to copy that over into a text document and open up it. I think that's a. Yeah, that's an L. So I have no idea how to pronounce this name. If the Steam page is correct, someone from France, but it's HLNAR. I am not going to even try to pronounce that at this time. I have no clue how to pronounce it, and I'll just leave it there. But I pulled this off of their Steam workshop. This was it was linked in the forums. They were just saying that they were, that it was using a peg system. Let's give an example. As you can see, these pegs, they have these sloped sides here. Basically, as you land the capital vessel on top of the base, the idea is that these slopes will help align the capital vessel. The reason I pulled the furnaces off here is because first I was thinking, oh, maybe the furnaces are interfering. But the furnace, if you look at it, is 1, 2, 3 blocks high. So if I place the furnace here, that is actually, by the time you get to the height of the furnace, you have gone those wedges on the top of the this here. So by the time you're done clearing those, you are now aligned at that point, and the furnaces aren't a problem at all because you are now aligned and stuff. So what is the problem here? The issue here can be, and the difficulty I've had with docking on something like this is that you get some sort of friction with the dock. Now there's, in the case of my the space system I did with this to help line it in, I used the wedge solution like that, similar, but it's more like what you see on my base here. You see that I'm actually using the wedges here. This side doesn't have the wedge. I'm actually only using the wedge on this side and on this end. That over there, that's flat, flat. That's actually intentional on my part to help line my vessel up. This stuff, because I find for myself when I was doing the based on the shape of my box here, that if I had the slopes on both sides, I would actually end up having more trouble lining this box up into my base, because then I would have issues that it would rotate to the slopes, and that was not correct. So I have the flat side, so I'm going to line my vessel up on the flats, and then the wedges to help finish the alignment and help bring the vessel in there. Now on the space station here, this actually changed dimensions from the original box stuff. The original box I was using slightly different dimensions, but basically I had a area that very similar to a little tighter, but very similar to the that capital vessel arrangement where it was loose. Well, the thing is, what I'd do is I'd fly it into that cavity that was loose initially, and about halfway into that cavity, I'd then have the wedges. So now that I'm already partway in there, then the wedges would then do the final alignment, lining up the doors of the capital vessel with the doors of the base. And in my case, then I actually then had shutter doors to totally seal for a total, like a hangar door sort of thing. So it would be totally sealed in the base that way, which theoretically with shields, then the base is then protecting the capital vessel completely through the shields of the base, totally covering. But the idea is that this, now this one is a farm, so it really not very CPU intensive. It's not really about saving CPU on the base. This is just basically saying, I want to if I want to farm to this base, I just simply add that module. Now I've got a farm, and it becomes a farm. I can make my base to suit what I want. This stuff. But over here, I'll do a demonstration of the docking. The stuff. This one with the wedges does probably a better job than what I'm doing, and it also conceals in the end. You get a really good, nice seal. Whereas mine over there, you can see the bars that I'm using to line it up, and I will demonstrate mine over in just a little bit as well. I'm going to do an outside view on this free range view here. We're going to go ahead. We're going to okay, that's right. I turned off the thrusters just because they're so loud and stuff. Now this looks like this is a pre-CPU build, either that or just simply built without CPU in mind. The stuff. This is just simply here. Now to demonstrate a little bit here what's going on, I'm going to rotate this thing around, move a little around a little bit here, so that theoretically I'm not perfectly aligned when I come down here. And if the wedges are going to help line it up. But what I found is it has the same problem as I have with mine one over there. Yes, the wedges initially line you up, but for whatever reason the game doesn't want to keep you perfectly aligned, so it keeps wanting to throw you off. And so here on a planetary base, I'm actually pressing O the whole way down. It's really slow, the stuff, but I'm pressing O all the way down, and I keep moving slowly down until this thing will finally finish the landing procedure, and we have a nice good blend with the base. Okay, and we will go ahead and turn off the thrusters producing the noise. Okay, get out of the seat. I'm just using God mode here mostly in this creative because I didn't want to navigate all the way through the stairs. But as I said, it turns out that the furnaces weren't the issue. It wasn't getting stuck on the furnaces because by the time you get there, the wedge has already done the alignment of the base. I just had to press O key to keep it sliding on down at its incredibly slow pace, but you know, stuff. I have the same experience here. So, okay, and that's right. My pilot seat. Okay. Again, I'm doing the external view, even though I've actually done the landing on this thing from the pilot seat before. When I've done that, so it is possible on mine. It's just a little harder. So I'm not going to play with that right now. But basically, I was actually right now the pilot seat is facing towards the shortest pegs on mine. The stuff. Shortest braces, but what I did is I was actually facing towards the tallest as I came in, lined it up on those, slid over to the side on the other tall ones, and stuff. So hold on, why am I? Thrusters are on. Here we go. So I've got liftoff. The few times I haven't had mine actually land all the way back down in there properly is because I had okay, I'm gonna really mess this thing up. Well, a little bit, because what I'll do is, yes, the other one, very similar. It's the O key I'm going to have to use coming out of stuff. So now mine, as I said, it is designed that I come down just over those short ones. The thing is, what it does is it ends up rotating my vessel into position, hitting the taller stuff. And again, I'm having to press the O key all the way down the stuff and the stuff to keep my vessel aligned. Yes, the pillars help the initial alignment. The wedges help the alignment, but I still have to press the O key all the way down. And what I'm actually doing is I'm using that door on the side of my capital vessel to check when I am finally aligned. Now that it's in that walkway, the stuff, it should be now aligned. I will then cut the thrusters. And here I'll drop out of God mode for a moment and walk right into the base. So I'm using mine a little differently. These are actually just modules. I have the farm, I have a cargo module, and a factory. So I have 3 different modules I can choose from. Put 2 modules on this base, and the idea hopefully is they look, other than landing gear sticking out there, and a few other things that will clearly identify that it's a capital vessel stuff. This mostly look like a part of the base. Now that particular landing gear sticks out there. the other landing gear, other than I think a couple on top, they're actually, the rest are hidden below. So if we go down below, there's actually a lower door into my capital vessel, and the bunch of the side thrusters and that stuff actually go into the lower levels of the base. I was initially thinking I'd have it go lower into the base, the stuff, but I think it, at least for me, it looks decent as a building itself. You know, looking like it is a, you know, part of this base structure. And to do the walkways, I enjoyed it. You know, so not quite the same here. In their case, the thrusters, you know, on the sides and stuff, showing very nicely. Whereas myself, I hid some of the thrusters the way I was docking into the base. But yeah, the my journey with these stuff and experimenting helped me understand what was going on with this. As far as I can tell, it just was a matter of pressing the O key. The gap under the base here, probably if I was, you know, trying to do more, you know, in a game, I'd probably either build out stuff to cover the gap, or the stuff. I was mostly placed it like this in this case because I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time clearing dirt off the pad to get that aligned correctly. Having played with my own, I am all too aware that switch to God mode is less noisy. That you know, as I may have mentioned, that when my base, when the capital vessel hasn't lined up correctly, going all the way down, usually it's been that have a bit of dirt that I didn't quite clear out of that recessed area. But that you know, pressing O all the way down, I found I had to use, and so doing it with the archaeologia, I found I had the same issue. I had to press O going all the way down on till I had the capital vessel down to where I wanted it. So that seemed to be maybe a little bit of hint, a guide on that stuff. And in the process revealing how I use a variation of, I don't know if you call it a reverse peg or something like that. Since I'm not, you know, actually landing on the pegs and you know, the stuff, I am you know, using some guides to guide my capital vessel into place for a tighter seal without just a loose fit. If I were to, you know, that's a warpless capital vessel. And why did I build a farm as a capital vessel? Well, I'll admit the reason I did a farm as a capital vessel is because when I've built bases and I've played survival, when I move beyond my starting world, one of my frustration has been that I cannot take the farm with me. Well, this capital vessel is not built with a snug fit there. This is not meant for permanent housing of that. This is just simply meant to relocate my said base modules. I have the base module fit in there. It's actually got a block extra in width, a block extra in depth, so it'll fit in there loosely, and then I can then transport my capital vessel. Use it now that we have capital vessel to capital vessel docking. I can use that capital vessel to transport any of my base modules. So therefore, I could have in this case, one of my factory module here with a total of 400,000 SU and capacity when it's fully complete. I actually designed it so it can be spawned in as tier 1, but you had to do a bunch of upgrades to it at tier 2 to bring it up to what it was intended to be. And then with its tier 2 upgrade, 400,000 units of storage capacity and stuff. So in other words, I could basically transfer that capital vessel, pull it out of the base, stick it on my transport, move it elsewhere. Similar with my farm, I can just take my farm with me instead of leaving it behind. Now I still, in the current game I'm playing in survival, I am using multiple other farms as well, but I do now have my farm that I'll be able to take with me as well. So yeah, I am actually using this base in survival, along with several other bases to what I'm calling my a base camp, the stuff. So, but yeah, the O key. O key is key. The reason I'm going to state one thing though. The O key for a space base can be a bit more problematic, because at least my last experience here, the O of flying a vessel and the O out there by yourself don't always line up. As you know, so you could have bases and vessels that the O is not the same on the quite the same on the orientation. Maybe they fix that, which is why the capital, the space station I had worked on, I had messed with a system like this on the short stuff where it really relied on the O key. I was having problems with that, which is why with this module being longer than it is tall, I then found that it was a lot easier that if I had it fly into a shaft, so that it was halfway in there into the the cavity, and then have my system and my wedges to align the vessel, finish the alignment. That worked fine for me, because then I was bypassing the need for the O key in a space-based docking solution. In this case, for the ground base, I was looking for something that something that was a little bit shorter, a little more accommodating of the fact that let's just say I tried wedges on both sides on mine. The pegs work great. That's the stuff. Those 4 pegs, but doing what I'm doing here, when I did the wedges on both sides, it created more problems for lining up my vessel, which is why one side's flat and the other side's wedge. That over there, the peg design, the wedges on each side, that works excellent for that. Does not work. Well, one, I didn't want the pegs on this anyways. So, because what I have planned long term for that module stuff, and now that we have capital vessel to capital vessel docking, having the landing gear on all the sides like that, I'm crossing my fingers that it will work and allow me to do some capital vessel to capital vessel docking of these things. But how I'm going to do the adaptation? Am I doing a shaft? Will they work with that? Will it, or is it going to be constantly trying to dock as I try to get it in there? Well, it's to be seen. But at least for the base, it works. So, and I've rambled on longer than I had intended here. Maybe because I've been playing with this sort of stuff. The person who did on the forums, what they did, they've actually got a very interesting system. I don't think it would work with what my here, with my get up here, where I'm actually using the walkways on both sides of my capital vessel, because I need my vessel lined up down into these walkways. stuff. So it won't work with what I've got. But for other things, I'm going to see if I can briefly summarize quickly what they were suggesting. Basically, what they're doing is they are doing an adaptation of the gap, the stuff. So it's not the pegs. It's not these wedges that I'm using here and stuff. They are basically they're doing a, well, you could say an adaptation, just a little tighter than what I'm doing over there on mine stuff, my vessel stuff. But they're going with a gap, which is easier for landing a vessel, and then they're lining one side up with shutter doors. So basically, you have, well, they're doing two sides actually. One side with, so they do so they have the gaps both ways. They have the shutter doors, and what happens is when the shutter doors are, so they do a custom switch in their control panel of the base. And I'm not sure what they were calling it, but you could say, is this something align CV or something like that, whatever. And they have this custom signal that when the signal's on, all those are open. And when they're open, they will not interfere with the capital vessel. So they're able to land the capital vessel in there without worrying about the collision with these shutter doors. So they have the extra gap to bring their capital vessel in there. Then, while they're still in the capital vessel, in the seat of the capital vessel, so the capital vessel can still be moved around, they then flip the switch on the shutter doors, causing them all to close. And when a shutter door is closed, it will interfere with the capital vessel. The capital vessel cannot travel through the closed doors, and so they'll close and they'll push the capital vessel into alignment. Stuff. So that one extra block of gap. So it's a very clever method, a very ingenious one. Stuff. But in my case, it would then have an issue that, yeah, I'd have to design my capital vessels to only line up with one of these doors, and I'd just simply not have the other walkway and stuff. But in my case, since I'm doing one on each side, I'm doing these capital vessels so that eventually I'm going to use them elsewhere in other solutions as modules to whether to be adapting capital vessels, whether moving them from planet to planet, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, for my purposes, I think my solution is great for me, but I really did, it was very interesting if you are messing with this stuff, to do signal work and use shutter doors to then force the alignment of to shift the capital vessel around to get your alignment. This over here using the pegs, so that they're hidden within the capital vessel landing down around the pegs, makes a much cleaner look than mine over here. Very nice, very good, clean looking, looking very much like a base. Oh yes. When they eventually get around, oh yeah, they could, and with those, yeah, they could, let's see, I don't, there might be a switch somewhere inside. I hope they've got a switch somewhere inside to do that, because I'd hate to go around and have to manually trigger every single one to cover that up. However, eventually, if you're dealing with some places where you have the issue. Um, I believe on by default we don't have the issue with thrusters being blocked, but those are not. There's very limited things that don't technically block thrusters. So if that should that have been enabled, those will be considered as blocking the thrusters. So I didn't even think of that stuff. Um, yeah. Yeah. And while I don't play with that turned on currently, I am aware of it and have toyed with it in the past in its imperfect form. Um, but yeah. So, okay, well, I'm going to call it there. Hope this is of use to someone. And enjoy your. Well, considering that I had some work, the reason I'm up at this hour is I had some work to do that needed to be done after midnight. Not my normal work day to work at these hours, but I would say currently with my current employ, that is a common case that I am Thursday nights doing some maintenance work, uh, and I am up after midnight. And so I happen to have read the forums while I was waiting for uh, some stuff to process, and that's when I saw this, and I just felt I had to try it out for myself after I finished my work to see what it was. And when I experimented with it, found that it wasn't actually what my initial conclusion was, because those pegs are tall enough that you are aligned by the time you get to the furnace, that it was really pressing the O key. If I wasn't pressing the O key, it got stuck. It wouldn't go any further down. So pressing the O key allowed me to get it to complete the docking procedure. And the only reason I really knew about that is because my own experience with mine, that I have to press the O key to complete my docking procedure on my planetary bases. Okay. Well, good night, good morning, whatever you want to call it, and enjoy.